Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Todd's podcast. Today's edition features Ed Chiles. Ed is a family friend. He comes from a family of significant political influence in Florida and the United States. His father was United States Senator and Governor. Ed's been an entrepreneur. He's been a restaurateur, philanthropist. He's even been the warden of some baboons in his earlier days. So I hope you'll listen today. It's a lot of fun. Ed goes through owning restaurants and his evolution into the world of organic farming and the importance of it. So I think you'll find today's episode really, really interesting. Hey, welcome back to Todd's podcast, everyone. Today's guest has quite possibly earned the moniker the most interesting man in the world, at least in Florida. Dos Equis, you got nothing on us. Our guest is Ed Chiles. He's a father, grandfather, restaurateur, entrepreneur, visionary, organic farmer. He's an ambassador, a philanthropist, and even warden of the baboons. We'll get into that. So welcome to Todd's podcast, Ed. We appreciate you coming here.
Thank you, Todd. I've been looking forward to this. It's nice to be here today.
Yeah, it is. So you're a Lakeland guy, born over here. Tell us a little bit about your history when you were born and your family. You come from a fairly famous political family here in Polk County.
Well, rich Florida history. Born in Gainesville, Florida, as my dad was finishing up law school after he came back from Korea, and moved to Lakeland when I was 3 months old. He was out of law school, and he was hanging up a shingle and starting his law practice in downtown Lakeland. And
was he a sole practitioner, or was he in a law firm?
Well, he started with George Carr and Bill Ellsworth. Carr, Chiles, and Ellsworth was that firm. And then the firm expanded over the years. Jay Peterson was part of the firm. Ned Cinder was part of the firm. And so he practiced law, but he was very interested in politics. He'd been in Blue Key at the University of Florida, and always kind of had worked for Fuller Warren during his gubernatorial campaign. And he, at 29 years old, ran for the House of Representatives. He ran against Roy Searles, who was chairman of the Rules Committee, which was one of the most powerful committees in the House, and a 10-year incumbent. And to get elected and to get known, he and Mom walked to every single house in the district.
Oh, my gosh.
And Mom would be on one side of the road and Dad would be on the other. And they always carried dog biscuits. You could imagine that they ran into some pretty ferocious dogs. And he upset Roy Searles in his very first victory. And I stayed at the Terrace Hotel last night, and one of my earliest memories is that election night party was held at the Lakeland Terrace Hotel. So Dad went on to serve in the State House for 8 years. And then he ran for the State Senate and served there for 4 years. And then in 1970, he ran for the U.S. Senate.
Right.
Didn't
no name recognition outside 4%, of our district.
4%. And Mom was adamant that Jack Matthews had run in the gubernatorial race the year before and had the cycle before, and had been left, was unsuccessful in that race, and had been left with I think it was a $375,000 debt, which was a lot of money back then. Right. And Mom was, fine with running, and she was a great partner to Dad, really a great reason for a lot of his success.
Forever.
Yeah. And all of the things and all the rough edges that Dad had were the great things that Mom had, and bringing people together and all the projects that she did over many years. But she was insistent that they not be left if it wasn't successful with Dad. And I remember the first conversation when we were in the house on Lake Hollingsworth, right across from the yacht club pool, that Dad's going to walk the state.
Walk the state?
We were shocked. what do you mean you're going to walk the state? And he said, yeah, we're going to go out, we're going to replicate that campaign, and we're going to meet people, and we're going to meet them where they live. But you mean you're going to walk the whole state? I said, yeah, I'm going to walk, and I'll stop every afternoon, and we'll have events and meet people, and we'll stay in people's homes, which is what he did. And
because you didn't have any money for hotels and for an entourage.
No, that campaign was a shoestring campaign. Yeah. And he started up in the Panhandle, and he walked into Tallahassee. I think it was about 30 days to get to Tallahassee, if I remember correctly. The whole walk was 1,100 miles, I believe it was, and he did it in 90-something days to get to the Keys. And he walked into Tallahassee just in time for the legislative session. And by the time he got to Tallahassee, it was starting to catch fire.
Wow.
And that was an incredible campaign. He really was captured by that campaign.
Right.
He knew that he had to represent those people that didn't have a loud voice.
Right.
And that was the beginning of his being a statewide office. He had, interesting enough, Dad was a pretty good businessman for a lawyer, and he was a risk taker. And my grandmother had some property on Lake Parker, and the operating team was just ginning up the Red Lobsters.
Really?
Ron Woodsby's dad, Charlie, and some of the people from the Gary's Duck Inn. And so Dad had the land, and they did a build-to-suit and a lease back for the very first Red Lobster. And then they did 3 more after that.
Right.
And he had a base rent and an override, and that's what allowed him to not have to bill hours anymore and quit practicing law. And after 4 or 5 years of them being open, he was making a nice living, getting mailbox money.
Right.
A
lot to be said for that.
And that allowed him to pursue the political career full time. And then he had 18 years in the Senate, of course. And
wonderful political career.
Yeah, great political career. And gosh, we just got exposed to so many great things being a part of that, and all the people that we got to meet, and the rallies, and growing up in politics back in the days, the early days when he was in the state legislature, the rallies that would be all over, getting on top of flatbed trucks.
I remember when you said Jack Matthews, I remember being in a Winnebago with my dad. He was a Jack Matthews guy. We had signs and stickers, and hey, vote for Jack Matthews, just driving around how it used to be done.
Absolutely.
And my dad was a big fan
the
of your dad's.
Dancer family, from the top to bottom, were all such great supporters for so many years of Dad.
Been a great relationship. Yeah. So while we're on him, after he left the Senate, he went on got frustrated there.
Yeah,
and a little bit, and
he was a chairman of the budget committee, and he was always, a fiscal hawk. Very concerned back then. Now, we're talking in
1970s and 80s.
Yeah, 1988 was when he left the Senate, and of course the deficit was a small amount compared to what it is now. But he knew that was not sustainable. That you couldn't just keep going on and borrowing money. And so he was committed to doing the hard things, looking at Social Security and mean testing things and some of the programs that were third rail programs. And when he couldn't get his own party or people in the other party to do anything about it, I remember it just got all over him, and he got depressed. Got really depressed, clinically depressed. And he just didn't have the heart to run another campaign, and it was campaign time. And I remember we went out on the road, and I was with him, and it just wasn't right. He couldn't get that fire back in the belly, and it was really, what am I doing here? I want to make a difference, and if I'm here at this pinnacle of a career, Mr. Chairman of one of the most powerful committees, and I can't make an impact, that it did not sit well with him at all. And so he retired, and everybody was kind of shocked. And then he was out of office for a couple of years, and he got the fire back in the belly, and that was the second greatest campaign was when he ran for governor, and he did the $100 and that was an
He was a
historic
great
campaign.
retail politician. He never met a stranger that didn't become his friend. I just always thought he was very good at it, and he had a real knack for doing that and being a man of the people. And but you know what? People don't understand what the family goes through.
Oh boy!
In going through that, especially your mom,
The wife.
Yeah, your mom's
with the two boys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably a good thing concealed carry wasn't big back then.
That's right.
But the family does just have to take it, a lot of it on the chin, because you can't really say much, and at least the candidate can at least defend himself and fire back a little bit.
That's right.
How did your mom handle all that? It sounds like she was frustrated, but she was an equal partner throughout this whole thing.
Well, she certainly was. And when it came to how they were going to run a campaign, how they were going to design brochures, what the sloganeering was, all of that, and just propping him up, right? Being there for him and being by his side. But the wife is just such a second fiddle when all the people are coming up and they're vying for attention, and she handled that very well. But one of the ways she did it was she did we counted them up, 27 houses that she remodeled over his political career. So Mom was always about having a project. That's how Florida House happened.
Right.
That's how some of the things that she did at the governor's mansion happened. She was an artist, and she had the galleries.
We have one of her pictures of Florida hanging in our boardroom downstairs.
And I go right next to my grandmother's house on Lake Morton, was where the library is now, and where the Polk Museum got started.
Okay.
And I remember the very early days.
Yeah.
She was one of the people ladies in the nucleus of starting that. So she had her own things that she was doing.
Right.
And but you're right, it's pretty tough on a wife. And for us, it was just really, really great experiences. And you had to kind of suffer the slings and arrows, especially in the later years when politics got to be.
Right.
I mean, it was always a rough and tumble sport, but it got a lot rougher.
Yeah. So you get through there. Your dad's elected. You go off to college. What was college like for you? And I know that's where the baboon story comes in.
It was an interesting time. I wasn't the greatest student in the world. And I started out at American University with a political science, wanting to get a political science degree. And I know I had some very famous professors, and they didn't think a whole lot of my acumen, I remember, in the first year there. But I got through that, and then went down to Santa Fe and did a couple of quarters there just to get my electives out of the way, because I was going to go to all good boys come home, and I was going to go back to University of Florida, where Dad had gone to school and gone to law school. In between that period of time, I went up to see a park. Dad knew Charlie Stein. He was in Polk County, and he was the head of Kraft Foods, and he had transitioned into a company called Hardwick Corporation that had duty-free shops around the world, and had a drive-through safari park that they were doing in Jackson, New Jersey. And so we took a trip up to see the park. I think it was 6 months before it opened. And Warner Leroy, King Vidor's son, was doing the design, and King Vidor had done The Wizard of Oz, and Warner had done the Tavern on the Green in Maxwell's Plum in New York.
Right.
And he was really an interesting character and had incredible imagination and creativity. And so we went through and we saw all this in the theme park, and they were like, hey, if you wanted to work here in the summer in the theme park, you could get a job. Well, we saw where they were unloading all the animals, and this was at that time, it was going to be the largest drive-through safari park in North America, 7.5 miles of road. It had 19 different sections and all kind of different animals: African plains, elephant rhino section, American section with the elk and deer, and then it had the bear sections, 2 bear sections. It had the lion sections, Siberian tiger section, Bengal tiger section, and then the camel and goat section, and then the monkey jungle. And that was, so I saw
You said, these are my people.
Well, I saw them unloading all the animals. I didn't really know it was going to be about the monkeys in that park. At point, we were just kind of visiting and seeing it all, and my eyes were big. My favorite movie as a kid was Doctari, right? Red Buttons and capturing all the animals. And the funny part about Red Buttons was capturing the baboons in that movie, right? He threw the big net over them with the rockets. And so I said, look, I will do anything to be able to work with these animals. I'll shovel animal manure. I want to be, I want to be around these animals. And so I got a job, and I was able to go up a couple of months before the park opened, and it opened in July of 1974, just after the 4th of July. And so I had gotten a chance to know the guys that had big animal experience. Every one of the sections was run by somebody that had experience in another park or a zoo or something, and worked with these different exotic animals. And so I got to know those guys and unload animals and kind of prove myself. And I was living with the guy that ended up being the number 2 in the park, and one of the guys that was in a lion section, and another guy that was a roving warden. And they were always talking about, all the wardens had zebra stripe pickup trucks. And you were jumbo Buana if you were a warden, And
chicks dig trucks with zebra stripes. Is that what?
Yeah, that's right. Short bed GMC with the zebra stripes, and kind of a lesson to be a big deal, a license to be a big deal. Yeah. But we would always talk about this and that, and they're like, all this section and that section, but you don't want the monkeys. The monkeys, the baboons, they're vicious. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, because I had kind of proven myself, my first job was to be the gate man between the sheep and goat section, which was just past the predator section. So the last one of those was the Siberian section, Siberian tigers. And then they go into sheep and goat.
Is that where the slow goats ended up when they didn't make it very fast?
Well, we didn't talk about what happened when something happened to an animal in the feed out, but
that's in episode number 2.
Yeah, but the last section in the park was the monkey jungle, and that's the one they said you didn't want any part of, and that section had the gate there was really a critical gate, because you had 10 feet of cyclone fence, and then you had 10 feet of sheet metal, because monkeys go right over that cyclone fence, right? They're monkeys. and so to be able to man that gate when there's 140 monkeys and they want to get out, and the traffic is blacked up in the section, going through the section, and there's a bus in the middle of if the monkeys want to run, the monkeys are going to run. And you wanted somebody that was going to be able to man those gates and get them closed if they could, but not get themselves hurt if the monkeys were going to run. So I had that section, that gate, for 3 days. Well, it turned out the guy that was supposedly had the monkey experience was afraid to get out of his truck, and the monkeys ripped 300 vinyl tops, pulled windshield wipers off of cars, ripped antennas off of cars in the first 3 days. I mean, this was back when the Landau roofs, right? And in 74, and there was all kind of vinyl tops on cars. And
rich Corinthian leather.
Sometimes those pimpmobiles would come in from New York, right? With the lanterns and the Superfly days.
Absolutely.
And so they fired this guy, and I had a shot to get the truck. And I said, monkeys or no monkeys, I want the truck, all right? And I took over and became Lion 19 in the monkey jungle. And so much of what I learned about life, I learned running those monkeys and getting them under control. And I could go on it. I could tell stories for days about what happened there, but it was by far the most interesting section in the park. The whole social interaction, the fact that you had big male olive baboons, East African baboons. We had one gelato. So some of those monkeys were 90 pounds.
Right.
And they could be pretty vicious. And they had personalities. So there was a few of them that didn't like you, and I didn't care very much for a couple of them as well. And so you had to navigate all of that, and it was very important that you keep the traffic moving, because when our section backed up and it was the last section, people weren't getting into the theme park. This was the first stop, and it was the flow, and it would back up the whole park, and so there was a lot of pressure on making things work, and we did, and we had incredible experiences. Every once in a while, we had to shut the gates and throw a bunch of firecrackers and get the monkeys behaving again, because they'd get out of control. And I had some what I thought were near-death experiences with them a couple of times. I've never been as afraid, I don't think, as when a monkey inverts his eyelid and all the hair in a big male comes up on the back of his neck, and their canines drop and they scream at you. Because you're trying to shoo them, you're out of your truck, you're trying to say, monkey, get off of that vinyl top. And you don't know somebody's got a window crack and they're feeding that monkey.
Right.
And that monkey gets very, very upset. And you just got to go back to your truck and take a few moments to settle yourself.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by Saunders Real Estate, your trusted partner in land and commercial real estate since 1996. With over 125 expert advisors located throughout the Southeast United States, the full-service brokerage specializes in a wide range of property types, from farms and ranches to commercial buildings and development land. If you're looking to build your legacy with a confident investment, please visit SaundersRealEstate.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. So after that, you come to the University of Florida. You become an ATO, of which I was one, and that's where I first met you for my first time. Yep. You had known my brother Rick and a lot of the other ATOs. And you got out of school. You went into, did you first go right into the hospitality business at that point?
I did.
Is it because of what your dad's experience with Red Lobster was, or did you work at the kitchen at ATO? Did you do pots and pans there?
I did. I
remember you.
I did. And I did not know that I was doing an internship at the time. But I was the pots and pans washer at the ATO house.
I remember.
Because I was trying to get a little beer money, right? And to be able to go out on a date or something. And I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I learned that you got to wash both sides of the pan.
Yeah. And that was the entry-level job in the kitchen.
It absolutely was the entry.
You didn't start any lower than that.
I never went any further than that.
You had reached your limit.
Yeah, but I got a little extra money, and and I kind of filed that away. But I guess how I got into it was I thought I was going to go to law school. And then I saw all my dad's friends, get into law school and try to get out, and go become a lawyer and then get into business and do other things. Watch my dad. And I thought, okay, well, I don't want to go do all of that to have my brain learn a certain way. And so I got out of school with a political science degree, and I had to find a way to make a living.
Couldn't waste all that experience washing pots.
And that's how I ended up being in the restaurant business. My dad, we'd always vacationed, spent summers in Anna Maria Island. The husbands would work and they'd come in on the weekends, and the moms would take the kids over, and we had a beach house or we'd rent a place. And so Dad approached me. He'd had the Red Lobsters. Of course, he wasn't an operator, but we were all about food. My dad and Mom were both great cooks, right? And we all hunt and fished, and we revered what we killed, and we ate good, and we picked the doves all the way out, and respected, and really enjoyed
killed it, you ate
cooking it and cooking it right with some of the best food. And so Dad came to me and said, what do you think about doing a restaurant? His friend in Washington had a bunch of restaurants and had a restaurant brokerage business. His name was Dennis Fecto, and Wilbur Boyd was his great friend, who was a state senator from Manatee County, his best friend. And so they had been kind of talking, and, maybe we do something, and, Ed can be the sweat equity guy. And so Dad approached me about it, and I said, well, it sounds interesting. I've always been a people person. I've loved food. And I just wish I'd have known beforehand. I'd have done maybe more than been a pots and pans washer. But Dennis Fecto, who was the restaurant guy out of the group, said, well, if this wet behind the ear kid wants to be in the restaurant business, let's send him for a year somewhere and see if he still wants to be it after that. And it so happened that they were having a conference up there, and Irwin Saywitz, who was the owner of Joe's Stone Crab, had married Joe's daughter, and Joanne Saywitz, and he was in town, and Dad said, go see him. So I went to see him. He was in the L'Enfant Plaza Hotel, and I sat down with him and said, I wonder if you give me a job. I'm interested in maybe being a career in the restaurant business. And I went down to Joe's Stone Crab, and Joe's was open then during stone crab season. They were only open for that 9 months of the year, 8 months of the year, whatever it is, October 15th to May 15th. And I showed up at Joe's a day before they opened and started there on the dish machine. So I had moved my way up. And they had the biggest dish machine you've ever seen.
You were dying going to heaven.
1,600 meals a night there. And I was on the dish machine until I worked my way off of it. And then I was the guy that opened the oysters and the clams and did the stuffed lobsters and their famous grilled tomatoes. And I learned so much at Joe's about culture,
right,
and about how they ran that place as a family. And it was such an institution, right? Still is one of the great seafood restaurants.
Absolutely.
One of the busiest restaurants
Absolutely.
in the whole country. I think it was number 3 or 4 this year, again. And in the meantime, they were scouring around and looking at restaurants. They looked at Pete Renard's in Anna Maria, almost bought that, and found the Sandbar. And the Sandbar was kind of the proverbial sow's ear. It was run down. It was 2 old Army barracks that had been brought over from Tigertown in Lakeland after the bathhouse. It had a great history. It was the modern history of the island was they built the city pier in 1911, and there was no bridge to the island then, and the people would come in on 4 different steamers from parts north, Tampa, St. Pete. They called them sports. And they would promenade across Pine Avenue, that was always kind of supposed to be the main street, and that's another topic we can discuss, the Pine Avenue project. And they'd come in on the pier, and they'd go straight across, half-mile linear, from the pier to where the bathhouse was on the Gulf. And the bathhouse was the site of the Sandbar restaurant.
Right.
And so that got replaced after it burned down in a fire where they talked about the booze was in the bushes and they poured gas on the fire, and then they replaced that with the 2 Army barracks, and the juke joint of the Sandbar restaurant was born, and that's what we ended up buying in 1979. It was 7 lots on the beach. And I couldn't walk with a bounce in my step through the dining room because the ceilings were so low, so you had to kind of hunker down a little bit. It was 110 seats. And oddly enough, I had bought my first beer there at 15 years old. And the word was that there was a certain woman bartender, tall blonde with a beehive hairdo, that would sell you a beer. And they had a takeout window on the south side of the restaurant. And at 15, I was 5'11", probably 120 pounds soaking wet. But I walked up, got all my courage, and walked up to that window, and she sold me a beer. And I don't remember what the beer tastes like, but I remember the feeling of walking away from that window. And so I took over. I came out of Joe's. We bought the Sandbar. I remember my dad saying, if we can do this and run it for 15 or 20 years and make a nickel hit the bottom line, this property's going to be worth something, right? A beautiful lot. I mean, world-class location.
Absolutely.
And certainly 45 years later, after selling it.
Worth more than 2 nickels.
Yeah, selling it in August of 2024, that certainly was the case. And so I was started in the kitchen, and I worked for 6 months under a manager there. And then I took over, and it was sink or swim. And there was a lot of sinking, and thank God enough swimming that we got going. And there was certainly some cash calls, and those guys, they stuck with me. And we built the deck about 8 months afterwards, and people, how did you have the idea to do indoor-outdoor? Because it was all indoor, right, when we bought it. Well, it was an asphalt parking lot with a seawall cap that was right on the beach, just on the north end of the restaurant, with 2 broken down picnic tables and a couple of cars parked there. Why wouldn't you do a deck?
Right.
But doing that deck, well, the deck didn't require the approvals when we built a little kitchen on that deck the second year, that had to be approved by the governor and the cabinet because it was an enclosed facility that close to the beach. And that was way before beach renourishment, and the water would break up against the rocks that were in front of the deck. So that's how I got started in the sandbar, and I knew how to. I loved people, I loved food, and I learned from some good people, and I just kind of clawed my way through it. And 45 years later, decided that I'd run the string long enough. We've done 2 more restaurants.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had 2 other restaurants. So you had 3 over there total. Were they all right next to each other? Are there different spots on Anna Maria?
They were all waterfront. The second restaurant was on the far north end of Longboat Key, right next to the old Moore Stone Crab. And that was right on the bay side. And it had a 14-slip dock, and it was an old bait shack, and it was about 70 seats. It had some tables outside, a few tables. Murph Clobber, who owned the Colony, that's who we bought it from. And it had the ability to be indoor-outdoor on the water, and that became our thing, right? We started the indoor-outdoor at Sandbar. We carried that on to Mar Vista and built a deck out there, and then we became 120 seats. Well, that helped a whole lot, and having that combination. Now, indoor-outdoor, everybody on the water is going to do outdoor, right? And then that was 88, and in 93, we bit off the biggest chunk, and that was the beach house. And that was called the Harbor House before we bought it. And that was 3 blocks of beachfront, 450 seats it was rated for. It was an all-you-can-eat frog legs and ribs, and it was kind of run down, to say the least.
Doesn't all that you can eat places bring out the absolute worst in some people?
It makes for sticky carpets, I got to tell you. A certain greased smell, fryer smell. I don't think they changed the oil very often.
They weren't overeating salads and coleslaw.
No, we had a small deck there, and then we built a deck all the way across the front. And we were off, and all of a sudden, if you were eating outdoors on the West Coast, you were probably at one of our restaurants,
right?
In our area. And that was we bit off a big chunk with that one. And the red tide of 95, 96 happened a year later. We opened that in December 6th of 93 after doing a 6-month renovation. So a year and a half later or so, red tide hit. That was a terrible red tide that lasted 11 months and 21 days and almost put me out of business. Right. I lost all my employees. I mean, it was a serious dead fish all over the beach and that aerosol and coughing, and you really couldn't be outside. Nobody wanted to come to the beach. And that really got me interested in water quality issues and how do we do something about harmful algal blooms, specifically red tide. And we all know about those, anybody that lives anywhere in coastal areas now. But that was the third one, and we got through that. And from 2011 to 2017, we redid all 3 restaurants, and they were all old. And
they had character.
Yeah, they had a lot of character, but they didn't have. Sandbar didn't have a foundation. It was built on pilings, and they had rotted away long before we did the renovation. The whole building waved and went up and down, and so we put structures in. And keeping the character, and that was really the task.
Right.
To people are like, wait a minute, what you don't want to lose that. Well, we made sure that we captured that feeling, and I was really, really proud of the way we did that. And we never shut down. We had portable bathrooms, portable kitchens. It was like our team had gone into the desert. I mean, like the Israelites, to work through that in those conditions and keep, we shrunk the menus, and we did the sandbar first, and we did the beach house second, and they all took 2 to 3 years, and we did the Mar Vista third, and so then we had really, really good structures to work with. All the ups and downs, COVID hit.
Yeah.
Got through that. Florida.
Was that the hardest time, or obviously the red tide had to be the hardest, but COVID?
Yeah, but even COVID was even harder because you were shut down, and we thought the government money was going to come through, and we were with one of the large banks in Florida in the country, and we had been with them forever, and we had our application in the first day, and we had it all done right, and we thought we were in good shape. And then we found out we didn't get the money, and then we found out later they didn't even get the application filed, and that's a whole nother story. But that shook me to my core because I knew we had paid all of our employees. We had fronted well over $1 million. And I knew that I had about 4 or 5 months left of run rate. And at that point, I didn't know where we were going to get money, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what else was coming and how bad. And so the uncertainty of that was really made for a lot of really tough days. But Florida opened up early.
Right.
And boy, people came in, and our staff rallied, and we got through that, and it made us stronger. We had our best numbers that we ever had subsequent to COVID.
Whether you like Ron DeSantis or not, I think his greatest accomplishment was getting Florida back open.
No question about it.
Whether if you're in business or not, whatever it was, whether you like him or hate him,
that's right.
He kept us going.
That's right.
And
no question about that.
People can never take that away from him.
Yep.
So at your height, I think the research I did, you had like 350 employees is that about right?
That's about, I think about 370.
370.
Yeah.
So that's 370 families that are relying on you for mortgage payments, rent payments, car payments, college payments.
That's right.
That's a lot of weight. And then your red tide comes, and then you have to rebuild your your restaurants, and then COVID.
Yeah.
That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
You just
one, you don't have a choice.
That's right, and you start taking that on, and you get weight on, and it's little by little by little, and you just kind of get used to it, right? I mean, it's just something that you deal with every day, and it's very interesting because you asked the question, because you don't know what that weight you're carrying until you take the pack off your back.
Right.
And when I sold, I mean, I knew I was carrying a lot of stress, and at times, I was, there were some very tough times. But when I didn't have that stress anymore, then I really could feel the relief of that, and I, really miss a lot of it. The ability to work with 370, with that team, to watch people grow, to see families grow, to watch people buy houses, generations after kids through school, kids that were babies that came to work for me as bussers a couple of times, right? 45 years in the business. The fact that every high school kid sooner or later worked for us, wanted to be out on the beach. We used to say our job's a beach, and that's a pretty good place to work when you can make good money and you can be outside and in that environment. And so it's a lot easier now without the stress of having to worry about all of that.
I'm sure you could always go back with your vast experience of doing pots and pans and dishes and work in the kitchen if you need to pick up a couple of bucks, or would they hire you?
Well, and I'm routinely wash pots and pans at my house, and I do a lot of the cooking too. But my wife has learned to not to get too in too much of a hurry to clean a pot, because she knows I'll go at it and I'll clean both sides of the pan.
Hey everyone, it's Christian Abbott. I just finished an awesome conversation with Todd. It was so much fun. So it was great to be here on his podcast. And we talked about all things cruising, Disney cruising. I've spent 20 years of my life out on Disney cruises, so it was a great conversation, and I don't want you to miss it. Be sure to check out Todd's podcast at todddanzler.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all the future episodes too. Thanks.
you sold your restaurants, I think you said August of 24?
I sold them in August of 24.
Right before the hurricanes.
I made the decision a year before that. And you got to go out and find a broker, which you know very well. And then you got to have the period of time for them to be showing it. And then somebody's got to come in and do their due diligence. And so I knew that was all going to take time. And I was very, I certainly understood that after 45 years, and being through all kind of storms and red tides, that you could only run the string so long. And again, I wanted to get out while I still was healthy. I had my first grandchild, who was 4 years old yesterday, so he was 2 then. And I love to hunt and fish, and I'd like to travel a lot more. And I thought, I don't want to go out in a box. I'd like to, and this is a good time to go out. 2 years after COVID, our numbers were never better. Our sales were never higher. Our cost, we were doing a great job of controlling. We were putting out great product and making a lot of people happy. I said, this is a good time. And so, we got the brokers and we shopped it around, and there was a good bit of interest. And all of a sudden there was a very interested group, and, we put out a whisper number, and they came back and said they would pay that number. And so we went to contract, and they had, I think, 3 or 4 months. And they wanted to, it was supposed to close July 15th, and they wanted to extend it a month. And I said, guys, I'll give you 2 weeks, but I know hurricane season, and I know when the bad storms come is August and September.
Right.
And I said, I'm not going through worrying about another August and September, so I'll give you to August 1st. And they met the date, and August 1st, the check dropped.
Yeah.
And, we sold to a very good group.
Good.
They're doing a good job with the restaurants. They kept the names. They've kept our people.
And why wouldn't you? That's what made it.
Well,
how
I
it
think
was.
that's right. I think smart.
Some people buy a business and they change everything. It's like, wait, you bought this for a reason.
Yeah.
For either the income stream or the name or whatever. And it just seems like a horrible mistake oftentimes if there's no structural problems. They're buying a great reputation of
there was nothing
your
broke.
restaurants.
There was nothing broke.
Right.
And we were under a construction project to do a kind of a takeout window. They're one of the big beach accesses, unloading zones is on the south side of the sandbar. And so they finished that up with a grab and go thing, and finished up the new retail area we were doing. They did a nice job with all of that. And I enjoy going in. And
You still go by?
Oh, yeah. My people are so nice to me. They all come up, tell me they miss me, and they hug me. And,
Good.
I get good
And
service.
you left at the right time and the right way.
And I left at the right time. I really feel great about what we did for 4.5 decades and the way we did it. And, every business tells a story, Todd.
Yeah.
Y'all tell a story here with what you do in conservation work. And I thought it was very important. The way I was raised, growing up in Florida, being, the native and appreciating the land and the water and the opportunities we got. And we have a platform, and we had a chance to do things right, to do local sustainable seafood, the stone crabs and the fresh grouper and the snapper. And we got more and more into that. We did the Pine Avenue project, and that became known as the greenest little main street in America. And it got me really even much more into how important that was because of the pressure that.
So was the Pine Street project, was that what kind of got you started in the organic and looking at things a little different, or?
It certainly accelerated it.
Okay.
In a big, big way. So
that wasn't your grand finale. That was your
entry
into
that was
that world.
The beginning of really drilling down on it, because that was 2007. We were going to lose our little opportunity to have a small business district. The city of Anna Maria was 92% residential. It was 1% commercial. It was 2% ROR, residential office retail.
Right.
That's where your small business, and that was that half a mile from the city pier on the bay side, straight across the island to the Gulf side where the sandbar was. And when the Pine Avenue Marina got sold, nobody knew how many lots there were there. That's where you could get ice and a 6-pack and a Cuban sandwich and high and dry and some ship's work, or they work on your boat engine and all of that. And all of a sudden there was a little plat map and there was 5 lots, and they built 3 big houses that were maxed out, cookie cutter, all 3 looked alike. And hey, I'm a big property rights guy. You've got the right to do it, you go do it. But it was like, wow, we're going to lose, because Anna Maria didn't really have a small business district.
Right.
And that's the way it always had been envisioned since 1911. They put the pier on one side and the bath, that was the yin and the yang, right? And so that started that project, and we went out and tied up a bunch of lots. The real estate was down then. It was 2007 when the market was deflated. And that was a very ambitious project that we took on, and I tried to raise money, and I toured people all around the street, and we had an idea to do it, and I wanted to do it green. I was the managing partner. The guy that was the operating partner was kind of against that. Oh, no, that'll cost money. It's not going to be. I said, no, we got to do this. We have to do it this way. A guy came in that's been my partner in a bunch of stuff ever since, a guy named Ted LaRoche, who's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Mr. Tennessee, was a lawyer and a general counsel for NHI and NHC, which is one of the biggest assisted livings in the public company. And he had a presence in Anna Maria, and he said, we won't do it out of equity. We'll each put in $500,000 and we'll leverage it. And we closed on the lots. Ended up being 11 lots. And we started building them green, and we got greener and greener and greener. And then we did 2 buildings, and they had an election, and these guys came in and said we were going to try to destroy the city, and we had a big political battle. And, my dad always said to me, these certain things, ring in your ears. And he said, anytime you're going to do something really important, you better be ready to go in the pit. I was at a point when these guys came after us and tried to say that what we were doing, we'd done it wrong, we had to tear down our buildings. I was like, Dad was gone. I was like, how far in the pit?
That's right.
How do I get out of the pit? It ended up, finally, they got our back up against the wall, and we had built 2 buildings then, and they were platinum green designated, all native plants, no asphalt. We did percolating all the land around it, boutique businesses on the bottom, residences on the top, 2 stories instead of 3, and we made them look like the old character of Anna Maria, and to reflect that. And that was where the value was, I thought. And
that's the charm of Anna Maria.
The charm of Anna Maria. That's what you don't want to lose. And it's so different because so many of the places have gotten built up.
Right.
And had before the zoning happened and all. And you got a gas station next to a hotel, next to this, a T-shirt shop, and anyway, we ended up. They got us our backs up against the wall, and we said, look, you're doing business outside of the sunshine here. You're on this. You got guys on the city council, and you're all, talking behind the scenes. And Dad had been involved in the Public Records Act, and so we exercised that. And we didn't have any emails. We haven't talked to each other. And 1,100 emails later, the guy that was spearheading it all made history. It's the first elected official to face a recall election in Manatee County, and he was recalled. And we went on and built them, and the people all came into the porch parties every Friday, and it became, somebody called it the greenest little Main Street in America, and we latched onto that. And I'm about as proud of that as any of the other things that I'm pretty proud of that I've done. And the businesses came. The people that ran those businesses were the most incredible dynamic because they supported everything.
Right.
They added such great texture. We had great beaches, we had great fishing, we had some good restaurants. We didn't have shops, but they're little boutique shops,
right?
Mom and pop shops. And there's the donut shops, and there's some great dress shops, and there's the Anna Maria Olive Oil Company, and there's the fly fishing and fishing store, and those kind of shops that really added, I think, and I'm really proud of what we did. And now, if you say Pine Avenue, people know,
right?
People know what you're talking about.
So this is a great segue into the next portion. Is you're out you have sold your restaurants, but you had been doing organics. You ventured into some other businesses, and I want to talk about those. How did you get into that? You're a farmer of some importance. How did you learn how to be a farmer or an organic farmer, or do you always just have smart farmers around you when you're on the business side?
No, it really goes to your question about how did you start getting more into the sustainable part. I just wanted to be more and more involved in the food chain, and I got to be a partner in Lola Wines. Seth Kripe, local kid, does good, goes down Napa at 17, works for all some famous folks out there, makes his bones, starts a little wine business, and I joined him as a partner in that, and Ted Larashi was talking about joining him as well. And so all of a sudden we were in wine too. Well, I'm selling that wine, and I'm telling the story about that wine and how we're doing that wine. And Seth found out by going to the French Laundry, Thomas Keller's, one of the best restaurants in the world, they're selling Batarga. And he puts two and two together. Batarga is the mullet roe that everybody fished, that we know all the fishermen, that they're all out there in around Thanksgiving until past New Year's, and they're throwing the nets and they're bringing in all the mullet, and they're taking the roe out of them. And they're sending it, where are they sending it? They're sending it to Sardinia and Taiwan. It's our treasure. And it's going out at an average price of $10 a pound in 40-ton containers across the world, frozen, for them to then dry it and cure it, loses 15% of its weight, goes from $10 to $100 a pound, and it's a gourmet product that you shave like a truffle.
Right.
And we're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. So we started the first company to do Batarga in the United States, and because that was about who we are and the heritage and our fishermen, and not letting them add all the value and take it. We wanted to show that we could keep that value here, and we knew who had the best roe and who was taking care of it. So we did that. And then the Gamble Creek Farm Project was a CSA that wasn't making it on the east side of the county.
What is a CSA?
Community Supported Agriculture. Okay. And that's the way, that program is no longer going, but it was the way the federal government got money down into local communities to help local farmers and to help families be able to get local food. We're not in touch with a lot of our food anymore. And that's something that we really need to get back to. And so they weren't making it, and I went out and talked to them, and I said, there's no reason this shouldn't go. And I was just ambitious enough and a little bit crazy enough, I guess, to say, boy, this is really my chance to get more integrated into the food chain, because I'm buying well over $1 million worth of produce. And they're half organic out here, and they're right in the middle of where there's going to be growth. It had really slowed down then, and now it is incredible. It's all subdivisions around.
Yeah, I'm going to take Eli over to Gamble Creek one day.
So we took that on, and we had a good farm team that was there. We went from half organic to all organic. We teamed up with the Wardens, who are the poster couple for organic farming. They have a big operation down at Warden Farms in Punta Gorda, and they helped us until COVID came along and we couldn't afford it anymore. We went to all organic. And we've just continued to learn and to build, and we are now, and I'm very proud to say, one of 6 organic certified real organic. There are only 6 farms in the state of Florida that have the real organic certification. Organic is good. Organic is 40% of the battle. It's about fungicides and insecticides. It gets gamed a lot, especially if you're looking at Peru and El Salvador and all the places that a lot of our produce is coming in from and that compete with our farmers. But the real organic is a lot more than that. And what we started doing about 8 or 10 years ago, we started recycling all our oysters and clamshells, and that was the Gulf Coast Oyster and Recycling and Restoration Project, where we were taking those to do shoreline restoration and substrate, where you take them out and you put them in areas where there's a lot of clams and oysters, or where there are clams and oysters. And clams and oysters, when they spawn, that spat, that larvae, it's not spat then, it's larvae, is in the water column. And when you see the dimples on an oyster or a clam, that larvae wants to land on something hard and shiny and take hold, and then it becomes spat. and then an oyster or a clam grows from that. And so that was about, you get 37% more production if you do substrate, and there's a little kind of a reef, if you will.
Is this what Carter Henney's been working on the restoration?
Well, it's part of what goes along with bivalves and seagrass working together.
And Carter was on our podcast last year.
And I had the privilege of having lunch with Carter today. And I've worked with Carter, and I'm hoping to work a lot more with Carter.
Smart
because
man.
bivalves and seagrass go together like peas and rice, okay? The seagrass is needed, right, for healthy coastal estuaries. People don't know we're the only spot in the country that has 3 national estuaries on our border. Florida has 4. Indian River Lagoon is the 4th. California has 4. There's only 28 in the country.
Right.
And that's where 40% of the commercial fish that we eat comes from, spends part of its life. That's why we all love Florida, right? That's forage fish habitat. That's what everything is built on. And so that seagrass and clams filter water. Filter water, more photosynthesis, better for growing seagrass. And the feces and pseudofeces of clams is fertilizer. It goes into the benthic environment. People don't think of the bottom of the coastal estuaries as soil. It's soil, right? It's growing things. It's incredibly important for sequestering carbon and for clean water and for reducing harmful algal blooms and cyanobacteria and the things that can be in the water. And so they go together, and they feed sea cows, and they do all that. So we had the bivalve and seagrass project, and then we started composting everything that came off the plate that went into the dish pit. Instead of going to the landfill, we're bringing the produce out from the market to the farm. We had special totes, and we would put all of that slop, if you will, and the beginning of compost, we would put that, take it to the farm, and it would mix with all the wood chips that they would bring us, because we were a lot closer at the farm than the landfill was for all the development that was going on around us, and we would make compost. And that took us on a journey about building soil, and that's one of the things that I am most passionate about today, because we've got a health crisis in America. And we're spending more than any other country on healthcare, and we're getting worse results. And we have non-communicable diseases, the inflammatory diseases, heart disease, diabetes, juvenile diabetes, strokes, Alzheimer's, all of that. And a lot of the reason for a lot of that is because we don't get nutrients out of our soil anymore. We're growing for shelf life and color in monocrops, where you grow, hundreds of acres of one thing, and you go in and you plow all the soil and you bake it and you kill everything in it, and then you add all the implements, which are more and more expensive. Fertilizer's gone up like crazy. And you grow for shelf life and color, not for nutrients. And then it gets sprayed with glyphosate too often and gets shipped across the country. We need to get back to local.
So how do you feed our population, or can you feed our population if everything is organic? Or do you have to have these big mass production farms that farm for what you said, color and shelf life, so that we can feed the masses and we're not eating soil and green at some point?
You have to have those farms so that we can feed the masses.
And we have the farmland we have can be converted to that and do that.
Well, I think it takes. We have to start moving that way.
Okay.
And if we can get more people farming locally, and we can show that people will pay, and it costs more. Right? And you've got to pay more. So that doesn't help the folks that can't. But if we can get more farmers doing it, and this is not going to be easy, and it's going to take a long time, and it may be a hill too steep to climb, but it's important to do.
You got to take the first step.
I don't make money at the farm.
Right.
But I'm passionate about it. So that's where a lot of my philanthropy. I call the farm my private plane.
Right.
I always kind of wanted to have a private plane. I'm flying a twin-engine turbo out at the farm.
That farm is 26 acres, right?
That farm is 26 acres. It is,
and that's big enough to affect a real change in a big part of the population, or are you just saying,
no,
hey, this
not
is
in a big part of the population.
It's just a piece of the puzzle.
It went from a farm that was behind the fences that was servicing our restaurant, another restaurant or two. And then we put up a little farm tent, did a farm stand like we all grew up with. And then we went into a farm market. So it's become more and more convivial with this huge neighborhood in one of the fastest growing zip codes in the country, 26 miles from the coast in Parrish, Florida is where we are.
That place is amazing.
Unbelievable.
I'm not sure it has improved.
No, oh, goodness.
I used to love going over to your side of the state and driving through Paris. I said, man, there's nothing out here. Now,
when it
you
popped,
go through there,
it popped. North of the river.
Yeah, it's bad.
And so we're a model, Todd. That's what we are.
Right.
And we're showing that what I want to do is I want to get to where the lines are meeting, because it can't be sustainable if it's not breaking even or making money.
Correct.
But we're a model. We're working with the Brain Health Institute, which was started out of Harvard, UMass General, about getting nutrients back in food. We're working with IFAS, and we're trying to show how nutrients in soil is our litmus test is we want everything that we do at the farm to be good for the ground down and the ground up. For your health, for your family, for the environment, for the air, for the water, for what happens in our coastal estuaries. Because what runs off of our farm and what runs off of all of these neighborhoods around us causes nutrient loading. And, red thyme and harmful algal blooms, those are natural occurring organisms. But when they come in and get close to the coast and they get fed with all of those nutrients, that's when the flash fire starts, right? That's when the gasoline is being poured on the fire, and that's when you could have these big, very nasty red tide events.
Hey, everybody, this is your host, Todd Dantzler. As most of you know, I'm a partner with Saunders Real Estate and have been a very active and working broker for over 42 years. I have fostered strong relationships throughout the state of Florida, working on properties ranging from agriculture and development land to multifamily, commercial, and industrial projects. If you have any real estate needs at all, please give me a call. I'd love to help. My direct line is 863-877-2846. Thank you. So you said you're one of 6 certified organics in the state. Is that what the word you used was certified?
Real organic certification. If you look up the Real Organic certification, you will see that. There's some great podcasts, the Real Organic podcast that I listen to. There's a blueberry farm, and there's 4 other farms in the state that are certified. So,
does the food taste better? Does it taste different?
No question about it.
It does.
No
so
question.
It's not just. It's not just new. It's better for you. It just doesn't have.
And it's shelf life.
Okay.
And we had ice on our lettuces last week.
Right.
And the ice melted, and the lettuces were fine. That doesn't happen.
Wow.
Right. It's how robust they are.
Okay.
And we're testing that. And we're testing that in plots all over. We're not just doing composting. We're doing vermiculture. We're doing polyculture. We're doing what is what's the word? My team is so much deeper in the syntropic, where you put certain plants together, where certain things do this for the insects and give off the exudates that feed the nematodes and all of that. So we're really a laboratory. We're working with IFAS. They're developing cultivars for nutrition. So we're right there to be the lab that works with that. But we're doing microbial solutions, what they call Korean national farming. So we're doing everything that we can do and learn about. And we're testing different plots all over the farm in a linear nature to show how is the organic matter, what's in there, what are the micronutrients in there, using biochar, and getting what we want is the data to prove this out, to show the linear nature of how that soil is improving. And the people that care are seeking us out. So what we want to do, and anybody listening, come to Gamble Creek Farm. If you're in 30 or 40 or 50 miles, or you're coming to the coast, you're on your way to the beach from Polk County, we're on your way. Does
it have a parish address?
It has a 14950 Golf Course Road. We are 7 miles north of Lakewood Ranch. We're not far from the interstate. Bring your family, come to the farm market. We're not only doing our produce, but we're supporting all the other local producers. Chicken, they're growing chickens. They're eggs. It's people with jams and flowers and our mushroom company. So if you're a local producer, we want you, a local bakery, anybody that's in that sustainable state, we're trying to bring all of that together. So we want you to come. We want you to try the products. We do samples. Our team there is going to educate you. Brown Trading, our seafood company, you can order stuff from Brown Trading.
Right.
You can order anything from their website. We bring trucks down twice a week from Portland, Maine. So the best caviar, salmon, tuna, wild Maine tuna, oysters, clams, mussels. You order that ahead of time, it'll be there and you can pick it up. So we're a hub for all of that at the farm. And if you come, we think you'll like it, and we want you to come enjoy it, and we want you to tell your neighbors about it, because we need to get better reach and and more people involved in shopping at the farm.
So if you also have a couple of pig farms, is that?
I don't, but a guy named David Fay does.
Okay.
So we grew up hunting pigs, right? And we know a lot of folks that like to hunt pigs, and a lot of people shoot them and leave them on the ground. We've got 34 states that have a problem with this invasive species.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting story, because the finest pigs in the world are the Iberian pig from Spain.
Right.
And the first pigs in North America come to Florida, to Manatee County in 1539, courtesy of Queen Isabella with Hernando de Soto from Spain, and they are Iberian pigs. And a lot of those pigs got out on that expedition as they moved up through Florida. That's right.
As pigs do.
And those are the first pigs in North America. And then they bred. And the Russian pigs came across the land bridge. And the pigs came in from Europe. And they all homogenized. And they got to be this problem where they're wreaking havoc in neighborhoods and environmental lands and golf courses. Well, David Fay started capturing these pigs humanely, catching them, trapping them, and working on selling them. And I was the first restaurant to start buying them. And we had to have the USDA certification. The guy's got to be there when you kill the pig and you slaughter the pig and do all of that. And I started selling them in the restaurants. David feeds them for months. He's 1,500 pigs right now. So if you're in...
He feeds them 4 months, like FOR or FOUR?
He feeds them 4 months, and it's actually 4 to 5 months that he feeds them. Yes. His Shogun Farms, and you can look up Shogun Farms Tampa on the website. That's a great website. It's on the northeast quadrant of the I-75, I-4 crossing there in East Tampa. And what we've done now, because we were getting them done, slaughtered at an abattoir in Waimama, and the fella's elderly and is transitioning out, and we were having some issues with how they were done and being able to fully utilize. He has now put a tremendous amount into this, and I have partnered with him, but he is the owner of this, and put together a abattoir for trailers. David has Lightning Bay Hydraulic and Pneumatic Company. He works on the biggest pieces of equipment in the world. Mosaic drag lines, Disney roller coasters, cruise ships, underwater stuff. He can wire anything. He can mill anything. He can weld anything and solder. He was an Air Force hydraulic
Sounds like my son.
mechanic who loves to hunt and fish.
That sounds like my son.
And who is not going to shy away from something he believes in. They shoot 1,000 wild pigs a year out of Myakka State Park under a USDA contract out of helicopters. The land stewards don't want to do this, but they got to leave them on the ground. They can't afford to give them away because of liability.
Right.
And they can't afford to bury them because of cost. So all they're doing is trying to keep the herd stable.
They're just feeding buzzards.
And they're feeding buzzards and breeding coyotes.
Yeah.
And so the feed comes in, right? Very expensive. So David gets weekly pallets of Borden dairy that's within 5 days of timeout. They're pulling it off the shelves. 1,100 pounds on a pallet. He gets all produce from the Tampa Bay produce market. I used to want to go out there and glean it for the restaurants.
Right.
Comes in on a truck, 3-4 foot high piles, zucchini, squash, carrots, cucumbers, you name it. Not because it's bad, it's yesterday's produce and tomorrow's is coming in, and the flow has to happen. We were getting him spent grains from our microbrewery partners, and he gets acorns. He's got a landscaping company, a maintenance company that was getting acorns from. God's gift animals, right? The fat and the protein and the. So this is a great story. Yeah. So he's taking those, and he is now he's able to slaughter and to package. We've gotten USDA certification there. Just happened in the last 2 weeks. Please go to Shogun Farms Tampa website and look at this. If you like great, I think this is arguably some of the finest pork in North America. The pigs settle down. Last thing you want to do is eat a pig that's been taken right out of a dog's mouth or shot on the run, and all the muscles are all got all of that jacked all up. And these are happy, and they're having more babies over there, and they're putting on weight, and they're putting on that beautiful fat that the Spanish will tell you has the oleo-9s in it. It is good for your heart. And now the second phase that David and I will be partnering is coming, where we'll build 4 more containers and we do the value add. So I've got one of the finest charcuterie chefs in the country who worked for me for many years. And so we're doing sausages. The blueberry maple sausage will make you want pancakes and French toast.
You'd have thought he brought some samples with him, don't you think, Eli? We'll get him next time he's over.
This whole episode, he's just making me hungry.
Guanciale, capicola, bacon, ham, that is artisanally done now, right? Is cured, is smoked, is salted down, whatever the different artisanal methods of doing it. And so we're really excited about the next phase, because what we want to do is tell this story and show the 34 states that have a problem. This Florida is here with a model as a solution. There's only one state in the country besides Florida doesn't have a robust model or processing. We're it, but Texas does, because they've got the nilgai and a lot of pigs, but they've got to kill their pigs within 5 days of capturing them, or they got to be butchered by then. Right. So they don't have the ability to let them settle down and to
like a feedlot almost.
Do all of these. That's right, things that we're doing. And so I call it taking lemons and making limoncello, because we're really turning it into something that is very high quality, high value. And that's just another example of the projects that I'm excited about. Yeah. Mushroom Company is another one, that to show people that there's things that we can be doing, and there's people that want these things. And by doing so, hopefully more people will do it. And if more people do it, more people will afford it, because the price will be able to come down. And so it's a step in the right direction. And I by no means want to be here today saying this is going to solve the problem, because you're exactly right. We got a lot of people to feed. And so we've got to find the best ways we can do to do that while supplying the needs to get the nutrients that people need.
Right. This whole podcast kind of shifted to a lot more on the organic and the other stuff that I think is incredibly interesting, and I'd love to have you back for that. We started off kind of wanted to come on and talk about your restaurants and your family and all that. Yeah. So I'd love to have you back, but got a few more questions and we'll wrap it up. You've got 2 fans that I know of. One is my brother and one is Clay Townsend. Yeah. And they both are big. Your dad was a hero to many people, and those 2 clowns are 2 of them. And, one of the things Clay wanted to know is you need to tell the turkey call story. Do you remember a turkey call story? I don't know what he's talking about. He gave nothing.
I mean, there's a lot of turkey calls. Dad used to, one time Dad
took over here, turkey.
Dad took one on the Senate floor when they were putting forward a bill that was wasting a whole lot of money, and started put one in his mouth and started to do that. I'm not sure which one Clay is talking about. I know we slipped one into his suit, the casket. to bury him with.
Right.
But I think my dad killed about as many turkeys as anybody alive over his last 30 years or so. But,
well, Clay talks about he helped with your dad's last inauguration, and he performed the original song "Walkin' Lawton." I've never heard that at the Capitol. And when he was in the restaurant, he had the Townsend's Fish House over in Orlando.
Yeah, that's right.
And they provided some Southern cracker food.
Yeah,
and that your dad was one of his heroes, and he certainly is to my brother Rick and Dean, my partner.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about getting into politics because of your family?
I did, and I always had told my wife that I wouldn't do that. And then when Dad got out of the Senate, I was really frustrated with what going on, the way money was controlling everything, and I got where I wasn't sleeping well, and I just felt like I was complaining about things, but I wasn't willing to put myself forward.
Right.
And so I went to my wife and I said, I told you I would never do this, but I just got to tell you, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I have this weight on me that I'm not willing to do something. I'm not owning up to that. And so she said, look, you got to do it. You got to do it. And so I ran for the state Senate. And then Dad got in the governor's race. And I was like, I said, well, I'll get out. And he's like, you're not going to get out. He said, imagine what it would be like, And I imagined that, and I won in Manatee County. I was running as a Democrat.
Right.
John McKay, who had worked for Dad, who later became president of the Senate, was already in the race.
Right.
And he was not happy that I got in, but I said, look, John, I got to do this, and John won, and I felt let out of school. It was a great experience and one that I do not want to repeat, but I'm glad that I did it.
But you know what? Where people like you can make a difference is in local politics, and that's what I did. And that's really where you have the most influence, because there's typically 5, maybe 7 on the outside, people on the commission. You have the ability to really affect the lives of people and get down on the granular level. And, your history over there in Anna Maria, and, I think you'd be wonderful at it. You have a great temperament for it.
Well, I think,
but it is not for everybody.
No, and I feel like my time is better spent where I can really make a difference on the projects that I'm working. And that's
you're not really just sitting around.
Yeah,
you're really kind of working harder now than you ever have, it seems like.
Well, I am, and my wife reminds me of that. But I'm not. I would not be good at sitting in a 5-hour meeting, listening to people get up, and half of them are.
You learn how to do it.
Yeah,
I didn't think I could, but you do learn how to do it. And does your wife share your passion for your plane versus the plane she thought she might be whipping around the country on?
No, well, she wasn't one for a private plane, but she doesn't share my passion for the amount of time that I'm spending.
But she likes you washing pots and cooking and stuff.
Yeah, more time there. But it is what I do, and I have to do it, and she accepts that. And
so what's your favorite food? What to eat?
I love game.
Game?
Oh, yeah. I eat a lot.
Did you ever serve much game at your restaurant? I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Well, we serve the wild pig.
Okay.
And there's only so much game you can serve because you can't serve you can't serve wild game. But all of the fresh seafood, the local stuff, the stone crabs, the snapper, the grouper, clams. We just had some of the best clam dishes.
Right.
All the things that we did with stuffed oysters and on, and all the wild pig dishes that we did. All of our bacon was a wild boar, and we'd put some of that in the clams. And I loved playing with food.
Yeah.
And my staff, I'd drive some of the chefs crazy. Here he comes again. And I remember one of the managers said, "You're like a wood chipper." You always got something else you want us to be doing, and I did. And
that's how you challenge them, and that's how you create.
I think you got a responsibility. Right. I could have sat on my behind and said, "We'll serve
shrimp scampi."
Yeah,
forever.
Nachos in a plastic basket with a piece of wax paper in it, and do chicken wings in a world-class location to get away with it. We could, but you're not honoring the effort. You're not honoring the location and the history, the heritage. If you do that,
So other than your restaurants, which is your favorite that you've ever eaten at?
Restaurants that are my favorite. Well, I worked at Joe Stone Crab, so I guess that's out. I love Indigenous in Sarasota. I love Il Ritorno in St. Pete. I love Rocca. In California, because I get to be in Napa a couple times a year with the wine business, there's so many good restaurants out there. Dan Barber's Stone Barns. I mean, Dan's at the very top of the whole sustainable effort with what he's doing there. It's just too many to pick one.
Do you own a boat? Or did you ever own a boat?
I owned one boat with the one outboard, and it stayed broke all the time. And I want all my friends to own boats, and I'll have a dock.
And you'll bring food, you'll bring wine.
Food, and I'll bring wine. Absolutely, I'll bring good food and good wine. I live under the proposition that there's only so many meals you get in life, and so don't waste one.
What kind of music do you like?
I love Southern rock and roll. I still love some Grateful Dead. I love Bocelli. I don't listen to enough of that,
right?
But I do. I love Bocelli.
If it was 1979 all over again, would you do this again?
I think about that a lot. Would I go to Europe and stage? Right? Would I learn 3 or 4 languages?
Right.
Being in the kitchen and learning those languages. And so I'd have to be back there to know, because then I would have had to trade some of the other experiences, and I wouldn't trade the monkey jungle for anything. And I wouldn't trade the time at Joe's Stone Crab. And if I could have found a way to not go to college and maybe learn by being in those locales and absorb their history, and gosh, I'd love to be able to speak just Spanish. And I took French forever.
Yeah.
I wish I would have taken Spanish. But I don't think I could change it. It's been a great run.
But if you didn't go to college, you wouldn't have joined ATO, you wouldn't have done POTS, and your career might not ever have taken the curve that it did.
That's exactly right.
It's a way to just kind of rationalize things. We did not get around to your work with food sustainability, United Nations. Maybe we could have you back and talk about that if you feel like it. Is there anything that I have not asked you about? We've kind of bounced all around, and you've been an incredible guest. I appreciate you taking an hour and 20 minutes today.
I'm just delighted that you gave me an opportunity to tell our story and make a pitch for people to come and see Gamble Creek Farms. I've been fortunate to, be associated with your family. Your brother Rick is one of my dearest friends, and we've spent time hunting in Montana and fishing together in Montana. Gosh, he's one of the best fly casters I've ever seen. If I could just
he says that about you.
If I could just get him to fish upstream and not throw like a bone fishing guide all the way across the river, he could throw a fly.
His father-in-law taught him that.
Yes, he did.
He can't get that out of
He just can't break that. But he's just been such a wonderful friend. And Julie, and I think they're going to come out hopefully and spend some time with us. And I get to work with him on some of this sustainable stuff, and he's somebody that I call all the time. So I just appreciate the association with the family, Todd, and the being a guest here today. And I thank you for what you're doing. I really enjoy listening to your podcast.
I appreciate you coming on, Ed. I appreciate everything your family's done, the leadership that they've shown here in the state, and the family relationship and friendships. I appreciate the fact that our fathers were friends.
Amen.
And you talked about getting some of the weight off of you, and I've felt the same thing different times in my life. And it's like, I sure wish my dad was here so I could run a few things by him. And it's like, I just wish I could have asked him a couple of things. And am I doing what he thinks might be the right thing to do? I think your dad would approve what you're doing.
Well, I think we were so blessed because we were raised right.
Yeah.
And I think we both
very fortunate.
Take it seriously that we need to honor their contribution and their legacy. And I know you do that, and I hope I'm doing that.
Yeah, I think so. Ed, thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. It was a very fun, fast hour and 20 minutes or so. Learned a lot. Get to Gamble Creek Farms. It's over in the Parish area. Well, maybe we can put a link in the description on the website. When we're marketing this, please take a listen and pay attention to some of the things Ed was talking about. it's important for us. And, you know, the first step on a hard journey is the best one you can take.
Absolutely. Take that first step.
You got to take
You'll
it.
take
And the second one will be a little easier.
That's
And
right.
the third will be easier.
That's
But
right.
there's a long way to go and a lot of work to do. And I look forward to taking Eli over. We'll head over to Gamble Creek one day and see what's happening. So thank you for coming on, Eli. Once again, thank you for producing, and we'll listen and talk to you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli, and I look forward to coming back.
Yep. Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me, suggestions for future guests, or are interested in sponsorship opportunities for our podcast, please just fill out the contact form on my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.